So thanks to our entrepreneurship committee, and if you guys wouldn't mind identifying yourself in the chat and just letting people know if you're part of the committee, we have a group of people who've been helping us with this program, and this was really their passion project, their idea to help build community among what we were doing with some of the other programming, and just wanting to have a monthly time to hear stories from each other. So kind of this very similar to our other events that we do that are more kind of workshop focused. If you can share your camera, it just makes it so much more fun to be able to see each other's faces and start to get to know each other. If you are in a place where you can't turn your camera, that's fine, but please do engage in the chat. I don't know about you all, but I sit in on a lot of Zoom meetings all day long, and they're way more fun if people engage in the chat, share ideas, share resources, share a funny GIF. I don't care. Just engage in the chat. We love to have that. We do have the Q&A open if you want to ask any anonymous questions to our speaker. Feel free to do that, or you can just throw them in the chat tonight. Just to help with the sound quality, definitely keep your microphone muted if you're not speaking, but there will be time to unmute your microphone and engage with our speaker and engage with each other, so feel free to do that. And please, 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 we are a new program. We are building. We definitely need your feedback. And as you close out from this event, there will be a survey that will automatically pop up. I swear it's not long. It's only like 4 questions long. So please give us your feedback for the event. And I forgot to do the poll, Jesse, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it within the chat. So we want to hear from you all in the chat. Throw in the chat. Are you brand new to the entrepreneurship journey? You're just thinking about it. Have you already started down the path? Are you deep in the entrepreneurship journey? Where are you at in the entrepreneurship journey process? Just kind of give your own self definition and throw in the chat. Where are you at? I would say, if I threw in the chat, I would say I'm a fangirl and an ally. I love to support entrepreneurs, especially local to my community, and supporting local businesses and our SHPE entrepreneurs. So I'm a fangirl and an ally, but where are you? I see I'm about a year into my venture. I see some thinking about it. Already tossed much time and money into the startup rat hole. Love to hear more about that, Byron. But where are the rest of you at on your entrepreneurship journey? Throw it in the chat for us. Don't be shy. Come on, y'all. Keep them coming. Five-time business co-owner now. Okay. Where else are you guys at in the journey? And those of you just joining in, hi, welcome. We're just talking about where are you at in the entrepreneurship journey? Are you just starting? Are you kind of learning about it? Are you an ally? Pitching an idea to your current boss, trying to become a subcontractor. That's exciting. Third internship underway, looking into building a business through research. Wonderful. Well, keep that coming. Keep those answers coming. We want to support each other and kind of help each other through this journey. So we always love to hear where you guys are at on this journey. If this is your first time joining, I do know we have some first timers today. We have kind of 3 components of this program. Our community building, our Cafecito, our private LinkedIn group, which I'll throw a link, but that QR code will take you to that, just to kind of help build community, build support, build resources. We also do a monthly kind of more of a virtual workshop, kind of how-to learning event. And so we just did a couple of those last week, and we'll have another one later in May. And then we also have our national convention at SHPE, where we'll have an entrepreneurship presence and talking about the content there. So those are kind of what we're doing in this space. And here's a little bit about some of those upcoming events. So next May 13th is our next Cafecito. We do not have a speaker for May yet. So if anyone here would like to pitch your business or your idea or concept, that's the QR code to be a speaker for our next event. And then our May 20th workshop that we're going to have, we have one of our volunteers who's a tax specialist coming to talk about how to navigate your taxes as an entrepreneur. And so she's volunteering her time, but said, I have to wait until after April 15th. So I got to help everyone with their taxes first, and then I can come and speak. So May 20th, she'll be coming to talk to us about that topic. So we've got a speaker who's going to share their business idea, approach, their path, their journey with us. And then we've got some time for ask that person questions. A lot of our speakers, the reasons why they do this is they want to share their journey and they want to share their story, but they also, those questions help them with feedback. So helping them think through, maybe you see something that they don't see and you've got a question or you have a suggestion or an idea for them. And so definitely engaging in that Q&A and with that mindfulness purpose of helping each other along our journey would be great. And then we'll also have time for networking as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let Jesse share their screen. And I'd love to introduce Jesse Gonzalez, who raised his hand to be a speaker for today and share his entrepreneurship journey and story. And so, Jesse, why don't you take it away?
So thank you, Susan, for the warm introduction. And also thank you to Ship for taking me on and giving me the floor for this specific evening. So really excited to be here. And I just want to preface before I get started, I've done a few of these before, and it's always nice to be conversational. So and nothing formal. So if you have any questions or need any clarification throughout the entire pitch, feel free to interrupt me. Happy to share because we're all here to start businesses or get started with it. So it's always nice to collaborate about that. But a little bit about me before I get started. So I am born and raised in San Jose, California. So I'm from the Bay Area. I have a background in chemical engineering and a recent alum from UC Santa Barbara. I've worked in the California Nanosystems and as well as a recent fellowship with NASA's Ames Research Center. And I've done that for 5 years. My background is in specifically biological technologies and research in that specific aspect. And then in terms of entrepreneur journey, I've delved into landscaping, biotech, you name it. And so if you want to connect or if there's specific things about here that I don't get I won't be able to address, but would like to follow up, feel free to connect with me and we can get that all sorted out. But so before I get started, I think with my specific pitch, I think it's important to see how I specifically got here. And so with that, I'll share a little bit about my brief entrepreneurial journey. So I did start out as a farm worker. I was picking strawberries up in the Salinas area, which is a little bit south of the Bay Area. And so I did that for a while, hated it, didn't like it. And so I looked for an out. And the way I did that is I went door to door in San Jose and see if people wanted to get their lawns cut. And so that initiated my first business when I was around 13 years old. And it was a landscaping business. And that's how I got bitten by that entrepreneurship bug. And then, of course, I wanted to go into university. So around 18 years old, I went to UC Santa Barbara, but that business aspect never left. And so while I was a sophomore there, I started a biotech startup called Bright Labs, which was more involved in protein manufacturing. And thankfully, this one blew up and it was and it grew exponentially. And so we ended up selling this startup for a little bit over $1 million to a local nonprofit here. And I couldn't carry on with it because I did promise my parents that I'll be getting a degree, and so I couldn't be one of those where like I'll just drop out. But when I did sell it, I did wanted to continue venturing in my research, and I think someone mentioned that they were invested in taking their research into a startup, and I highly suggest that. So that's what I did too. I did more research into microbial technologies, and then that ended up into BioPlint Industries, which is another biotech startup where you turn your plant waste into commodity chemicals. Or this one was a failure. So I didn't get, there was a few things, aspects, didn't get really along with the co-founders. It's nice to have people who you can trust. And in this case, it was really, really rough. But not only that, it was not the right product market fit. So there was, especially with this new administration, sustainable technologies is very, very hard to get specific support for. So this one we just shelved and we sold some of its IP. But I did take some of the technologies I got from BioPlint Industries and then created Vesicular Biosciences, which is a pharmaceutical startup that got started and launched last year. And this was more for accelerating the development of pharmaceuticals through the use of artificial cells. So this is more for like pharmacokinetics and all that without the use of needing animal models or something like that. But that's not the pitch I'm giving today, mostly because we're still figuring out the market validation, still determining product market fit, and doing all sorts of FDA clinical trials. So I don't have much to talk about on that. But if you're excited or still interested in any of these, I'll be glad to chat afterwards or just send an email and we can set something up. But today I'm going to talk about Drivera, which is a recent one we started, and it was more SaaS biotech company to help solve a lot of the issues that we face here locally and throughout our community. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. So we're Drivera, and we essentially detect moisture incidents sooner so property operators can act smarter before such incidents can turn into these expensive surprises. Now, mold is everywhere. You hate it, I hate it, we all do. And in general, remediating mold is especially difficult due to the high volume of units managed, the large number of maintenance tickets, and the highly subjective and often emotional nature of tenant mold complaints. I mean, some of us can possibly relate to this. We've probably got mold and we got mad at our landlord or something like that for not fixing it or remediating that aspect. Be it more specifically for these property management operators, these landlords, they also must have to navigate a complex legal landscape that requires balancing rapid professional responses with the reality that not all tenant concerns indicate a serious habitability issue. It's essentially a waste of time and money just trying to figure all this out. And in fact, a recent survey showed that 70.2% of multifamily property management operators nationally affirmed that their legal claims mostly stemmed from moisture-related incidents. So obviously, we realized something, that this wasn't just some annoying, pesky niche maintenance issue. It was rather a more reoccurring chronic condition. It's an operational and liability concern. And that was essentially costing these property companies their profit margins. But we wanted to test this to see if this was actually true in our local community. So with this, we went out to our local community and to do some market validation. And after just speaking with 23 of these PMs, these property managers and owners, we immediately saw a pattern. Yes, moisture incidents are difficult to handle. However, we learned three specific insights. One, preventative spending is easier to prove than emergency funds. So when the issue is already causing a problem, they're not going to they'll struggle spending money on it rather than preventing it. As well as these property management teams are looking for ways so they can interpret data. A lot of the stuff that's on the market currently just provide raw sensor data. It doesn't tell them it actually, I mean, they're not scientists and all that, so they don't know how to read, oh, what's the parts per million of mold spores in the atmosphere. So they want things that can actually tell them these prioritized alerts. But the golden goose was essentially that this audit trail was a must-have, was something we didn't realize. So essentially, effective management requires all this extensive documentation to defend against claims that mold was ignored, something that we thought the market had already a good system for. Apparently not. And so from this, we knew we had a problem that was worth solving, or at least something that people were willing to spend on. So we experimented, and after a few MVPs, after a few minimum viable products, we were able to narrow our focus to design a product that can detect risk early, prioritize these responses, and also prove resolution with that audit trail. And so with that, I introduce to you Drivera, which is essentially a moisture risk platform for property manager operators to continuously monitor their unit's health, similar to how an Apple Watch is able to monitor human health. Drivera is able to offer moisture prevention, faster prioritized responses, lower ticket burden, and of course, that must-have audit trail. Now remember, these operators manage many units at a time. So Drivera works through a plug-and-play system to reduce that workload burden of these property managers. So let's say you and your roommates or your housemates enjoy taking hot showers. Now, of course, this is a moisture event that can cause mold. What our puck will do is then monitor such conditions and see if it will cross a specific threshold and to lead to mold or water damage. If so, the PM will then get a simple alert on their mobile device and they can manage those issues effectively and efficiently all through the touch of their specific devices. So no need to constantly contact vendors or like see or go for themselves. Oh, do you actually have mold or something like that? Because tenants can be subjective at times. And with that, we compare to what's already available on the market through one of few ways. Drivera, for instance, is not just another sensor. Unlike our competitors who are reactive, costly, or fragmented at times, we differ in that we are proactive in prevention. We take tenants out of the equation to provide those objective alerts. We then help interpret the raw sensor data for those operators and then provide the documentation necessary for operational and liability concerns. Now, taking a step back to consider the market at hand, if every professionally managed rental in the United States just purchased one puck for each one of their units, this leads to a total addressable market of $7 billion. But we essentially believe the value of Drivera is best served in those rental units across the West Coast, which equates to around $900 million. Therefore, our greatest chance to actually penetrate the market will be in the Santa Barbara County, which is essentially an $11 million market, given the pain is much higher and the budgets are much, much bigger. On the other hand, we make money, which is of course the best thing about this, is through this hybrid recurring revenue model. We sell the actual physical puck for $20, and then we also sell subscriptions that'll provide that software needed to monitor the health of these units. Specifically, we provided 3 tiers since through our market validation, we found that a proportional trend was needed between certain needs of the property management given their certain portfolio size. So of course, if they have to manage 300, 500 units, they require a lot of customization and specific things that they want. So this is where the 3-tier system comes in. And we know this pricing strategy works because they told us that they're willing to spend however much $100 per unit. So it's within their budgets and it's something that can adapt to. Now, in terms of the team, however, our team has experienced serial entrepreneurial experience with building startups, and we acquired between us over $2 million in sales, and we are equipped with 5 years of experience in manufacturing commercialization, as well as 4 years of experience in the startup realm. Not only that, we recently onboarded an advisor, Mr. Lofton here, who was once the CEO of a SaaS real estate company before he retired. But at its peak, it served 40% of all of North America. So overall, a great addition to our team. And then this is essentially the end of my pitch. It's not a formal pitch per se, but just to get a little off topic, I understand that building businesses and startups in general is scary and the failure rates can be pretty high. However, you essentially don't have to do it alone. And that's why we also launched Beam, which is a nonprofit here in Santa Barbara, the Central Coast area, so SoCal, California. So if you're interested and you have an idea, or if you're trying to scale, or if you don't know how to navigate a specific thing, we have Montecito, which essentially when a lot of retired executive CEOs, founders come to retire, we built this. They came, they're volunteering their time. It's completely for free, and they love to assist our community. They even can do other things. I mean, one of them just taught me how to sail or something like that. And so we're trying to build a community here to help you support in getting your startup goals started. So if you're in the Central Coast, feel free. These mentors are free, and they're here just to help you expand and grow your specific ideas. Specifically, we have an event coming up that's free for students. Professionals I think it's for like $30, but free food is provided as well as wine. And so if you're interested, I encourage you to come out. And it's just to grow your network because something it took me a long time to realize is that if you do want to scale up a startup, it's about who you know at times. And so it's a great way to start expanding your network and getting the resources out there so you can hit the ground running. But to get a little bit back on topic, overall, Drivera, it helps property management operators keep their units dry while saving thousands of dollars and thousands of hours. Thank you. I'll stop sharing.
Way to go. Thank you very much. I'm going to open the floor up to people. There was one question I think got addressed in the chat, but again, your questions will help Jesse. So, all of us are here to help each other. Ask questions about process, anything that you want to ask to help him, but also for your own learning as well. So I see Benny's up first, so let's go.
Hey, Jesse. Thank you so much for your presentation. I truly love it. And, one thing I always love about asking an entrepreneur is how do you think of that name? Because actually, I love that name a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I think this is like the fifth name we landed on. At first, we were called Damp Guard and stuff like that, but we essentially landed on a name after trial runs. So we would see through our market validation, I mean, even the puck said the name, and we will see their reactions to it. Okay, what name do they respond to the most? Which ones do they like? And we actually ask customers too. Oh, so what do you think about it? In terms of the branding, just to see how they react, and how they feel about it, and overall how it looked on logos and stuff like that. So it was through a lot of trial runs, and I think it was one of my co-founders. I think it was Carissa, who was the one that came up with the okay, let's do Drivera. It sounds more modern. We keep units dry. That's our whole goal. So let's just try that out. And I was the one that stuck with most with people, and so that's how it started. So hopefully we can continue on with that one.
What other questions do you all have? Thought Ariana posted a comment. I like the presentation. I realize I need to prepare one. Yeah, I like the market page. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you, I mean, you've clearly your journey that you've talked about, you've done multiple iterations of different startups. How have you kind of honed, like what are some of the things that you've learned as you've honed your skills to pitch an idea?
So the thing I learned in terms of the actual materials, what I learned is having a nice pitch deck is a nice thing to go about it, but there's always specific aspects, especially when you go talk to investors or what they're looking for. They're looking for a problem. They're looking for if you how what's your progress, what's your market validation, how many or do you have any pilots? And they're also looking for the financials. They're looking for the ask. They're looking for so it's over some experience that I learned that okay, these are all the specific components that goes into a well pitch. What I also learned is as long as you can describe the problem and why people are willing to buy it, and is there a huge need? Is this product an idea that I have a must have, or is it a just it's a nice to have essentially? And so as long as you're able to portray that this is a must have type of item, and relay that throughout your pitch or throughout a specific executive summary, which is just a one pager, or just in your elevator pitch as well. So in 60, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, are you able to navigate through things? And so, yes, having the other components such as the market and how it works it is nice, but it's not the most that I noticed that individuals really require. It's mostly can you relate the problem? Is there a market for this? And how are you planning on selling it? So your business model. But overall, just getting it cleaned down, it wasn't really required. Now it's more formalized, and so now I have to make it pretty, unfortunately. But yeah.
Awesome. There's a question in the chat from Anthony. What resources did you use to find your product market fit?
Whoa, it's a good question. In terms of resources, I don't. I tried so a lot of industry research. So something that I see a lot of people not taking advantage of is essentially white papers. So there, we all heard of the big five accounting firms, and also EY, Deloitte, McKinsey, and so on. And they have what the hundreds of data analysts just working on specific things, finding market trends and all that. And what a lot of people don't know, or I don't think know, is that they publish a lot of these white papers to try to convince other big companies to buy all this data from them. But it's free for the public as well. And so what I did is when I'm trying to look at different, so like let's say for this one, the moisture incident. So a lot of my research came from those white papers. I would go there, see what white papers they have on the moisture or just in general the real estate environment, and then look at through all the data. Is do they find because I'm just one person, I can't compare against 100,000 of different data analysts, and so I'll go there and see if they found any data on any market disruptions, or is the market looking for specific things. So a lot of my industry research I did through these white papers. Not only that, people themselves. So I still live close to UCSB, and so we all experience mold. A lot of this is student housing. They constantly have mold. And so one way I did was go interview students, go interview the maintenance workers, go interview the PMs, because I at that point I still didn't really know who my ideal customer was. And so people are also a great resource to utilize interviews specifically. It's all about asking the right questions. And then AI, I tried to dabble with here and there, but I realized sometimes just tells me yes, when in fact it's just wrong. But so I don't really use AI too much. But my main resource is either the white papers or just talking to people in general I'm trying to sell it to.
So I'm going to ask a detailed question. Where do you go find those white papers?
Yeah, they're usually found on their websites. That's also something the AI can also help. So like you can just ask AI, "I'll find these white papers for me," or because they're really really long and dense.
Mhm.
So AI can help sort that throughout. But essentially, they're just on their websites and their data section tabs and stuff like that. So really
And so
accessible.
Deloitte, and what were some of the other ones that you used?
It
Deloitte, what
was
else?
Deloitte, PwC, EY, McKinsey, and I'm forgetting the fifth one. But the big five accounting firms, the consulting firms, essentially. Yes.
I
So
saw another question from Josue. I worked at Best Buy and a lot of customers don't like subscriptions. How do you go about selling your subscription, or do you think you'll have a one-time purchase later, and which is more suitable for a startup?
yeah. Subscriptions, we started off at great question though, because I have gotten this a few times. Yes, we all hate subscriptions. I'm pretty sure most of us already have like 10 subscriptions or something like that, Netflix and all that. So it's getting tiring. But the subscriptions we just rolled out for our pilots, just so they can test it out for a few months and see if they actually want to purchase it or if it's actually for them. So it's usually for our before launch specific aspects of it. But in the future, we are planning on going more. So we've been working with the banks, so specific US bank here to funnel through contracts. So in the future, and once we start converting a lot of these pilot programs, we're planning on doing 3 year or 5 year contracts where they can just pay in full or pay per the annual basis and just get one invoice and then they'll go about that way. So they're constantly don't have to worry about paying per month. So yes, we did find that subscriptions are annoying, and so we're going down the contract route to solve it. And since we are B2B company, we're selling company to company. They prefer that a lot better.
Paola, hi.
Hi, first and foremost, I wanted to apologize to everyone, Jesse and Susan. I did not want to disrespect the fact that I got my time zones mixed up. I'm so sorry.
You
So
are
I
totally
joined
fine.
in a little bit later, but
You're
I'm
totally
here and thank you for being here today, Jesse. So I'm so sorry.
No worries.
I see something in the chat. Let's see. Something from Ariana giving me an idea to open scope right now based on his product and company. When he mentioned subscriptions, it gave me idea of adding a subscription option for my own service I don't currently have that included in my original business plan, but it could be a strong addition for ongoing support.
Yes, that's something that I highly recommend. So subscription is always nice because it's the revenue model for that is an annual recurring revenue. And investors specifically and people who want to support you like that because it gives you some cash flow or at least some healthy cash flow in that aspect. Um so it's nice to have and recurring revenue models are always really, really nice. Because you know that you might be getting money here and there, specific if you have it for a few terms or a contract or annual basis. So you know you're going to get that money. You can also leverage that to the banks or something like that to help loan you. So okay, we have this contract. They're going to pay monthly for a year or two, and so they can help give you cash to start your development and all the specific aspects that you need for your operations. So it's nice to go that for that specific aspect. So I highly encourage it if you do need a cash flow.
I've seen some very interesting entrepreneur subscriptions in my local community. There's actually one for a candle making business that you can buy the vessel from them and get a candle made, and then you can bring it back and they'll refill it. And so you're reducing the waste and different things, but like all different, it could be something that's more technology focused, something that's more service based, and there's lots of different ways to think about bringing your customer back time after time and creating that loyalty piece. Um, Leonardo posted an interesting comment in the chat about the white papers. Yep, they are long, absolutely. I read quite a few white papers in my day, more on the on the higher education side of research, but it also has heard that sometimes that they're in the white papers because that research has failed. Any insight into that? I had not heard that. Anybody have any insight into that?
Yes and no. I do know what you mean, that some of that research is in the white papers and that's why they were just giving it out to the public. But not all of it. So some of the data they do have, the research itself, or like their conclusions, maybe like, okay, maybe it's not. But the data itself, they're not lying. So the data, like for instance, the 70.2% of multifamily operators, I got that from a white paper, and then that's something you can easily cross reference if you don't trust it. And they usually source it too. So if you need the data and the statistics just to back up your own ideas or claims, or at least get you started, like, okay, I have all these problems worth solving, which is the most one, which one has the most data behind them, that's where they come in handy. But definitely a lot of their conclusions itself can be like, okay, we found all this data, it's not worth pursuing this environment. But you might be able to come up, okay, sure, then let's not take it that avenue, but I'm considering this avenue, and that's probably something they haven't considered itself.
Yeah. Always
uh
good to research, but my gut says I highly doubt they would put it on their website if it was completely failed because they wouldn't want to call that out, right? Like, so. Another question that was up, and I don't think it had it in your presentation, Jesse. Do you have a website for your startup for Drivera yet?
yes. Let me
I
see if I can
don't think
pull it
that's
up real quick.
there, but I
I
did
know
share
it's in
in the
the.
chat, y'all, the slides. If you missed the presentation or want to go back and look at any part of his presentation, the public view for those.
Yeah. Something I do also, if you are really excited or need an accelerator program to get started, the residencies are always really, really great to join. And especially if you meet like-minded individuals who are probably around your same age, they pay for you to stay at a house and you're just there building along with other individuals as well. Most of the residency are focused more in San Francisco area. But if you're building a new AI model or just have an idea in general, um, consider applying to the residencies. Those are always really, really fun.
I would love to hear again in the chat too from everybody who's here, what kind of geographic area in the country are you joining from today? We've been doing a lot of research into the different entrepreneur ecosystems, and I'm just curious I see a lot of familiar faces here, and I'm just curious what geographic areas that we have repeaters coming in from, so we can be looking into the ecosystems within your areas. I actually just because I help with this program, not because I'm an entrepreneur, but scheduled a chat yesterday with a coach through a not-for-profit here in the Kansas City area that specifically that works with entrepreneurs and kind of talking through how they help entrepreneurs in the local area. But I see a lot of Los Angeles. I see a Santa Ana, San Antonio, Phoenix, Pennsylvania. Um, but finding some of those ecosystems, there's a lot of those researchers, a lot of those resources that Jesse's talking about, like the accelerators and different programs, and getting plugged into those in your local communities. Currently overseas, hey, in Chicago. Awesome. What other questions do you all have for Jesse about his pitch, about his process, about his journey?
I do have a question for you, Jesse. Again, I'm sorry for being late, but I need one thing that stood out to me like was your story and your journey throughout the years. So, from being like a farm worker to building multiple ventures in biotech. So, what do you think was the biggest like mindset shift you had to make as you transitioned from into like entrepreneurship?
And I haven't thought of that. Um, hmm. the Usually when I go into something, my mindset is there has to be a better way. And so, for instance, when I was in picking strawberries or not, there has to be a better way to make a living. There has to be a better way to go about this stuff. that ended up being landscaping. And so I usually, and then not only that, but just, I know this is cringy and stuff like that, but just don't give up. And so you're gonna encounter a lot of failures. I failed plenty of times. I also really, there's moments where like, is this really for me? Can I even do it? And stuff like that. So I usually go in the mindset of like, as, if I give it at least 110%, uh, then I won't be too missed. Because the one thing I do regret a lot of times, and I used to regret this when I was younger, is essentially don't miss any opportunity. And so I took every opportunity. So when I had the opportunity to start that landscape business, I did. When I had the opportunity to translate my research into business, if I saw an opportunity to sell that research, I took those opportunities with that. And so it was always that mindset, just keep going and don't just never miss an opportunity. You don't know where it's gonna go. And so I highly recommend to just if you're contemplating it, if you don't feel like, oh, maybe this is right for me or anything like that, just do it. And you're at the end of the day, you're still gonna learn. You're gonna learn something, whether it's in your field or not. You're gonna learn aspects, you're gonna learn people skills. And so it's very, just be active. And so that's usually when my mindset when going into things. I'll just do it, give it my all, and I'll at least learn something, even if it's not successful.
That's awesome.
Got some very specific questions in the chat for you about just like what does that unit cost kind of look liking for you? What kind of sensor are you using? Do you have any kind of an exit strategy? So some very specific questions. So we're going to let you answer those. And then I see somebody's got their hand raised. We'll jump to that person and then head back to the chat.
Uh-huh. So yeah, my unit cost. So my unit cost, it takes $36 currently to build, and I did mention we do sell it for $20. So we sell it at a subsidized rate, and this is nothing new. We do follow the same revenue. Our revenue model is basically the same system as Alert Labs, or I think the most common one is Keurig. So we sell our actual equipment on a subsidized basis, and that's only to accelerate deployment and switching and to help lower switching costs because people might be already accustomed to specific things, so you might want to make them as cheap as possible for them to switch over to us because we realize our hardware is not actually the profit center. It's actually the subscriptions or the contracts for our software that is giving us most of the money. And so the unit cost, yes, is high, but it's not even making us any money. In terms of hardware, CPU sensors, yeah, we do use a ESP32 right now. I recently just came back from a trip to China to see if we can work with a PCB assembly manufacturing. And so hopefully soon we can translate away from that because that's what's raising our costs a little bit higher is this microcontroller. In terms of exit strategy, hopefully, with this one, I'm already graduated. I already got my degree, so hopefully with this one I can stay for a lot longer. But so far we're looking at a 5-year financial projection. So we just launched, and so hopefully in 5 years, if our projections stay true, then I can exit within 5 years, and then we'll plan on just selling it. If we do meet our goals to some company or not, whoever's willing to acquire it, or even to sell off the pieces of it. But yeah, so our exit strategy is in 5 years. And then competitors, yes, we do have. I don't know if you meant like selling it to our competitors or what my competitors are, but there are competitors out there. So those are like the leak sensors, the environmental sensors, the property management workflows. So that these include Alert Labs, Honeywell's, Residio sensor, the Flow by Moen, and Appfolio, Yardi, and stuff like that. But as I mentioned, these can be really costly or they're really fragmented. So a lot of the property manager software out there just doesn't do the things that they wanted to do. The leak sensors just give them raw data. The residual one from Honeywell, they had to install it all over the place. So they had to spend like $1,000 analyzing their pipes and stuff like that. So it's not really feasible if you just have student housing or housing the property manager doesn't really care about. They just want to rent it out. And so yeah, we try to make this as cohesive and provide and solve all those pain points for customers.
Well, it's clear in those answers that you have done a lot of research on this and you've done a lot of work. So congratulations. I want to acknowledge Shaista. Do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Jesse, for this wonderful presentation. And thank you so much, Suzanne, for creating this space. We get to learn a lot, of course. It's very wonderful to have this much knowledge. So I would like to ask Jesse two questions. I hope that's not so much, but what marketing strategies have been most effective for you to reach your target audience? And my next question will be for you. How do you build and maintain a strong, inclusive company culture? Thank you so much. You have a wonderful evening.
Good questions. And thank you for those. Um, Yes, so for in terms of our marketing strategy, what we found, since it is the real estate environment, what we found is referrals is the best way to go about things. We can put ads out there. We tried doing ads on like Facebook through the Meta programs, ads through Amazon, so that wasn't generating a lot of revenue. And what we found was, okay, if we work with the actual property companies themselves, then the marketing does itself, which is also why our customer acquisition costs can stay really, really low. And it's really nice because since we're making a lot, our profit margins are really, really high. They're around 70 to 80%. We can also use some of that money to give them signing bonuses. And who doesn't like a nice signing bonus? That's not, as soon as they sign for the pilot program or for the contract itself, we give them $5,000, $2,500 just for signing and committing that they'll use our products and stuff like that. And they really enjoy that. And we found that when we started that strategy, they started telling all their colleagues, and then they went to go talk to their insurance people, like, oh yeah, they give us money too and stuff. And so that was really nice to help accelerate and expand our customer base. We'll also notice is trade shows is also really, really nice. So there's something called like the National Apartments Association and stuff. So we go to them, and it costs like $1,000 just to rent out a booth, similar to how the companies that at the Ship National Convention rent out booths and present about the company. We do the same, but at different conferences, and we get a lot of individuals. Because honestly, the people going to those conferences are the people who are looking for better strategies or ways to navigate their apartment complexes. And so that's one, and it's also really, really fun just to have your own booth. But that's also how we can generate traction. And insurance is also another thing. So knowing really, really well about the market you're in can also benefit, because it crossed our minds that, okay, yes, every home has insurance. So let's also talk to the insurance. Especially in California, where insurance wants to leave, they want to figure out ways to go from pay to claim to prevent to claim. And so we worked with the insurance companies, like, okay, this is a strategy for you to maybe not have to pay them out. Because if we prevent the mold and water damage, that helps you guys out retain a lot more of your money. And so we worked with the insurance companies, and they're doing a lot of the marketing for us. So when a new apartment complex or house comes out, then insurance companies does the marketing for us. They go talk, okay, there's this new device too. Highly recommend you guys to buy it because it will help with water damage and claims. And so that's actually with the unfortunate incident of the fires and the Palisades and all that. That's our next biggest contract. So when they're rebuilding, right now they're rebuilding a lot of the apartment complexes and all that. So we're working with the insurance companies who are working in those fields to also provide that with us. So knowing the market, and for at least ours and our marketing strategies for this company specifically, partnerships, referrals, and all that is helping. And conferences is working a lot more than just ads. And for your second question, so an inclusive environment, that was always a tricky one. It's you can't really uh, the way I go about it is, one, I try to be the least talkative in the room. So as soon as the way I run meetings, essentially everyone comes in, and then we all read the memo, because of course there's always aspects, or even if I send an email the day before or a week before, people sometimes don't read it or read the full thing. So when we start a meeting, we read all the updates in the memo for 10, 30 minutes or so. That way everyone's on the page and they know exactly what they had enough time to actually read through it. And then after that, I let everyone share their thoughts, their updates, or their new things that they want to come up with, or what they thought about what we're doing in so far. Everyone shares first before I speak, because when I notice when I speak, then people feel scared to say their ideas or share their ideas, or they might think, okay, whatever I say is the last step. So I don't like that. And so I try to do that. And then, of course, promote specific aspects of the community. So we're a very, very Latino-based institution here in Santa Barbara, and we work a lot with the Chamber of Commerce. Specifically, we have the Greater Santa Barbara Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So we work with them too. to help students get experience with starting startups, or just getting engineering experience or technical experience or marketing experience, you name it. So we work with all of these different community-based programs, also with our new nonprofit Beam. So many people in the community, from high schoolers, I never thought I would have to train a high schooler in my day. So those are really, really fun to get people from those communities to come get that experience so they can use it for their own things or even grow with us. So we try to collaborate a lot with our community in itself. And I was a farm worker too, so my education was really, really messed up in the beginning. And so we also started this thing called the Future Makers Program. And so we're also collaborating with students in the non-traditional route or in the farm working route to also get them experience and education through either building, marketing. I mean, I had little kids going around just to build their marketing and business skills, going door to door to these property management companies, and just who's going to say no to the kid? So I guess that's also another marketing strategy. But yes.
Wow. 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 I want to hear more about that. And I'm going to throw a link. I have a group that we've been working with. If anybody's interested in helping young children who are in this space of thinking about their invention, the Ford Foundation hosts an event every year called the Invention Convention, and there's an opportunity for you all to serve as online judges. So I'm going to throw that link in the chat. Really, really fun to help those kiddos think through. So I'm going to ask one more question that's in the chat, but then I really want to open it up also to the networking. So for those of you who have been sitting and listening and kind of absorbing, this after this question, this is your time to share any thoughts or questions, or hey, I'm working on this idea, or I'm stuck here. Anything that you want to share with the community, and we'll turn the recording off and do that. But one more question for Jesse about the time and research that you needed to create Drivera, and then also what were some of the setbacks in your process? And I see Benny's question about the company website. We'll get that and send that out in the recording too.
Yes. So time and research. The best way, I think, if you are planning on doing that, you don't need a good product, at least when you're starting out. That's when I realized first, and I guess that was a setback, but with my other companies, the other startups, is we always poured in I mean, I'm an engineer too, so always like, oh, I need to make the product look really, really cool. I realized that was not the way to go. Don't spend a lot of capital, time, resources building a good product. What you need is a good minimum viable product, and that's also another way we kept capital low. I mean, when I started Bright Labs, all I did was for the prototype before I announced it to everyone was I spent $100. So I went to Dollar Tree, bought some little things here and there, grabbed stuff from my lab, and then built the minimum viable product. I only spent $100. And so I highly recommend do not spend so much money on your final product, because at the end of the day, if it's not worth solving a good problem that people are willing to spend, a rule of thumb is 2.5 times the price that it took for you to make it. So if you make it for $36 or something like that, you should sell it for 2.5 times more. And so if you don't have a problem that can achieve that, you probably don't have a viable business. And I see a lot of people pouring time and money, and a lot of people care about their products, but you got to pivot too. So if it's not solving a problem, you got to pivot and change that prototype. So for instance, when we were building Vesicular right now with Vesicular Biosciences, one of the prototypes was really carved it out of foam. I found an Imagineer who's really, really good at building foam models, and we built the product out of foam, and we really just took it to our customers like, okay, how does this look? How does it feel? It doesn't work, obviously, because it's just made out of foam. But how does it feel? And that gives us very, very valuable feedback to, okay, this is what they actually care about. This is what they like. This is what they're willing to spend money on and stuff like that. So continuously reiterating minimum viable products until you've learned exactly what the pain points are. Are we solving them? And do they even like it? And before you actually pour in time and capital and stuff into a final product. What I was always told by mentors, you go through at least three minimum viable products before you try to launch your and there's actually never a final product. You should always be iterating. And I saw somewhere too, so what is my start capital? Yeah, my starting capital was for this one, for Drivera specifically, we started with $200. So not that much. And so we started with $200. We worked with the university too. And so this university, and I mean, I think most of you guys are students too. So universities have all these types of resources and all that kind of stuff too. So you can easy grab. And we have a maker space too that allows you to 3D print for free. So that's something we did when we were building our prototype, just 3D printing the casings. The electronics here was really, really cheap to buy from Amazon or something like that. And then the lab space, well, I asked one of my PIs, my principal advisors, and I used your lab just to build this thing. And they said yes, because they like supporting students for their education. So it doesn't take a lot of capital. A lot of people have this thing where like, I need to have at least $100,000. No, you need $100,000 when you're trying to scale and trying to grow and finally start doing, but you don't need it to get your first customer. And then I believe I forgot the second part of that question, but remind me again.
Some of your setbacks.
Oh, my setbacks. Um, Co-founders has always been, or at least team, has always been a really, really tough setback. And it's hard to find someone who's willing to commit as many hours and time, at least in my experience, with you in developing your thing. And I had a legal dispute with a co-founder once too, who said he just wanted to do this for the experience, but then he sued me when I tried to sell it. But that's a whole other thing. So co-founders is always really hard, and it's also really, really hard to navigate specific. You don't. My big advice: don't go in with friends, or make sure it's a really, really good friend you can deal with obstacles with. But yeah, that was my first mistake, going in with a friend. We didn't get along at all. We had different visions, and it just destroyed our friendships and destroyed all that kind of stuff. Um, and yes, you definitely want to write a contract. Before I used to take people's verbal sayings like, okay, are you willing to commit? Yes, awesome. Now I realize everything has to be in writing. So make sure that if okay, you delineate, especially when you started trying to incorporate too, have that all written in writing, who takes what percentage and stuff like that. But the other setbacks was more customer validation. So actually finding that product market fit, not being deluded that, okay, 'cause sometimes I would get really, really attached to my products. Like, I really love this. I spend so much time, but I got to learn that I have to pivot. That's not where the market's going. That's not where I'm solving the pain point. So although I spent so much time and money and it's a hard thing to get over with, but I do have to just ditch it and start anew because I'm not going to be able to sell it in the end. And so those are some of the setbacks. Just trying to work with my mental battles. Like, okay, I had to give up on this app, and I got to pivot. A lot of people say persevere through a challenge. I say pivot. And usually, if you're persevering, you're probably solving the wrong problem. So I'll pivot and figuring out because that's you got to let the customers guide where you're building a specific aspect. If that makes sense.
Wow, Jesse, I feel like you could give us a whole another hour of workshop content on the how-to. So don't be surprised when I come knocking on your door asking you to
No worries.
some more. I do see some other questions in the chat. Maybe you can go in there and kind of respond to those, but I want to stop the recording for a moment and thank you for your time, but give some time here for the networking as well.